Imagine waking up one morning to the sound of explosions. Your home, your land, your entire history erased in an instant. This was the reality for over 700,000 Palestinians in 1948 during the Nakba, the catastrophe. When entire villages were destroyed, families were forced into exile, and a new map was drawn without their consent. Today, their descendants, nearly 6 million refugees, still carry the keys to homes that no longer exist, a symbol of a struggle that has lasted for generations. But Gaza's suffering didn't start or end there. For over 75 years, this tiny strip of land, smaller than Detroit but home to 2.3 million people, has been a battleground for war, politics and survival. Blockades, airstrikes, and broken promises have turned it into what the UN calls unlivable. And yet, every time the world thinks the crisis has reached its peak, it gets worse. How did we get here? Why does Gaza keep burning? And what does Islam teach us about justice in times of oppression? This isn't just history. It's a test of our humanity. And the story starts much earlier than you think. Gaza is more than just a crisis. It's the epicenter of one of the most enduring struggles of our time. A place where history, faith, and geopolitics collide with devastating consequences. But to understand why this tiny strip of land, just 25 miles long, has become the world's most contested territory, we need to unravel the threads of occupation, resistance, and betrayal that have shaped its fate. For Muslims, Gaza isn't just a political issue. It's a moral one. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The believers, in their mutual mercy, love, and compassion, are like one body. If one part feels pain, the whole body responds with sleeplessness and fever." Bukhari and Muslim. Today, Gaza is that wounded limb of the Ummah, bleeding but unbroken. Since 2007, Gaza has been under a crippling blockade, controlled by land, sea, and air. 80% of its population relies on humanitarian aid, and 40% are children under 14, born into a world of checkpoints, power cuts, and trauma. Yet, this is only the latest chapter. The roots stretch back to the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916, when colonial powers carved up the Muslim world, and the 1948 Nakba, which erased Palestine from the map. Every war since 1956, 1967, 2008, 2014, 2021 has layered fresh wounds over old scars. Now, in 2025, with over 48,000 dead and a famine declared by the UN, the world watches as Gaza becomes a graveyard of headlines. But behind the numbers are real people. Fathers digging children from rubble with bare hands, nurses delivering babies by phone light, and students who've known nothing but war. This isn't just about Hamas or Israel. It's about survival, dignity, and the Islamic principle that oppression must never have the final word. So how did we reach this point? Who holds the keys to peace? And what role do we, as Muslims, have in rewriting this story? Let's go back to where it all began. To grasp why Gaza remains an open wound, we must confront the three forces that shaped its torment: occupation, resistance, and abandonment. This isn't just about land. It's about a people systematically stripped of sovereignty, hope, and the basic right to exist. The crisis begins with a broken promise. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration pledged British support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, a land where Arabs constituted 90% of the population. by 1948, Zionist militias expelled 700,000 Palestinians in what survivors call the Nakba, the catastrophe. Overnight, Gaza's population tripled with refugees, crammed into just 140 square miles. But the world looked away. Then came the occupation. After Israel captured Gaza in 1967, military rule choked Palestinian life. Farms bulldozed for settlements, wells seized, and curfews locking families indoors for days. The First Intifada, 1987, saw children throw stones at tanks, a symbol of desperation. When the Oslo Accords promised peace in 1993, Israel instead doubled settlements, rendering a Palestinian state impossible. The blockade was the final trap. In 2007, after Hamas won elections, Israel sealed Gaza's borders, controlling everything from food imports to hospital fuel. The result? 97% of water is now undrinkable. 80% live in poverty. Children draw nightmares instead of playgrounds. And when resistance erupts, like Hamas's 2023 attack, the retaliation is biblical. Whole neighborhoods erased, families buried in mass graves, and survivors eating grass to survive. But here's the truth. The media misses. This isn't a conflict. It's an asymmetric war where one side has nuclear weapons and the other has stones, where 1,200 Israeli deaths in 2023 are answered with 40,000 Palestinian ones, where ceasefires are temporary but occupation is permanent. The question isn't just who started this, but who sustains it. From Washington's vetoes at the UN to the Arab world's silence, Gaza's pain is a collective failure. And until we reckon with that, the cycle won't end. It will only escalate. The road to Gaza's agony wasn't paved in a day. It was built brick by brick over decades, with every missed opportunity for peace digging the grave deeper. To understand how we got here, we need to walk through the 4 fatal crossroads where history took a wrong turn. First, the 1967 war. In 6 days, Israel didn't just capture Gaza. It occupied the West Bank, Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. UN Resolution 242 ordered Israel to withdraw, but instead, settlements multiplied. Gaza became a pressure cooker, with refugees from 1948 now joined by those displaced in 67. The world issued resolutions, but no one enforced them. Second, the Oslo illusion. The 1993 handshake between Arafat and Rabin promised Palestinian self-rule within 5 years. But while Palestinians disarmed, Israel tripled settlers in the West Bank. Gaza's economy was strangled. Fishermen shot for sailing too far. Farmers barred from their fields by the security barrier. By 2000, the Second Intifada erupted not with stones, but suicide bombings. A grim escalation born of despair. Third, the 2005 withdrawal myth. When Israel removed its settlers from Gaza, it wasn't peace. It was a repositioning. They kept control of borders, airspace, and even the population registry. Then in 2006, when Hamas won elections, the West imposed sanctions. A year later, Hamas seized Gaza, and Israel locked the doors. The blockade wasn't security, it was collective punishment, a violation of international law. Fourth, the 2023 trigger. Hamas's attack didn't come from nowhere. It followed 16 years of blockade, 5 wars, and Netanyahu's brazen expansion of settlements. But the response? 30,000 bombs in 2 months, targeting hospitals and UN schools, revealed a chilling truth. Gaza had become a laboratory for urban warfare. Its people test subjects. At every turn, the pattern repeats. Palestinian resistance meets disproportionate force. The world debates, then looks away. Meanwhile, Gaza's children, half the population, grow up knowing nothing but drones overhead and the taste of trauma. This isn't just history unfolding. It's history screaming at us to pay attention. October 7th, 2023. A date etched in blood. Before dawn, Hamas fighters shattered Gaza's fences, killing 1,200 Israelis and taking hundreds hostage. The world gasped at the brutality, but missed the context. This wasn't mindless violence. It was the explosion of a pressure cooker sealed for 16 years. Within hours, Israel's response turned apocalyptic. "We are fighting human animals," declared Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as Gaza's water, food, and electricity were cut off. For 48 hours, 2.3 million people held their breath in the dark, waiting for the bombs. Then they came. Not surgical strikes, but carpet bombing. Entire neighborhoods erased. Families buried under their own homes. Doctors performing amputations without anesthesia. The world watched in horror as Gaza's last hospital generators sputtered out. Parents wrote children's names on their limbs so bodies could be identified. The UN called it a graveyard for children. But the weapons kept coming. $3.8 billion in annual US military aid rained down as white phosphorus and 2,000-pound bunker busters, turning refugee camps into craters. Then came the hunger. By December, 90% of Gazans faced acute food insecurity. People ate animal feed. Mothers gave their kids salt water to fill their stomachs. When Israel allowed 200 trucks of aid per day, the UN said Gaza needed 500 just to survive. This wasn't collateral damage, it was policy. A starvation campaign, said Human Rights Watch. The breaking point, the ICJ genocide case in January 2025. For the first time, Israel stood accused under the Genocide Convention. The court ordered emergency measures, but the bombs kept falling. Because the truth is this: October 7th didn't start the war. It ripped off the mask, revealing what Gaza has always been: an open-air slaughterhouse where the world turns away from the screams. This is the climax of 100 years of injustice. Not a battle, but a revelation. 75 years. That's how long the world has watched Palestine burn. From the ashes of the Nakba to the rubble of Gaza today, one truth remains unchanged. Oppression never dies quietly. It either consumes or is consumed by the resistance it creates. We began with a key, the symbol of a home stolen in 1948. Today, that key hangs heavier than ever, passed to children who've known nothing but war. But this isn't just Palestine's story. It's ours. Because when hospitals become mass graves, when bread becomes a weapon, when entire bloodlines are erased from civil registries, that isn't conflict. That's the machinery of erasure, oiled by our silence. Look at the arc of this tragedy. 1917, a British promise that birthed a century of bloodshed. 1948, the Nakba that never truly ended. 2023, the moment the mask fell, revealing genocide in real time. Yet in this darkness, Gaza has rewritten the rules of resistance, not with weapons, but with sheer existence. Parents naming newborns after martyrs. Journalists live-streaming their own deaths. A people who've transformed survival into an act of defiance. The Quran says, "And never think that Allah is unaware of what the oppressors do." 1442. Gaza, is the living proof. So where do we go from here? The path is clear, if we have the courage to take it. Boycott the hands that arm the bombs. Speak when governments look away. Remember that every statistic was a soul who prayed like you. This isn't history. It's the test of our generation. And when our grandchildren ask where we stood when Gaza was erased, may we answer not with shame, but with the echoes of our actions.